Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Some of you may have noticed the U.S. debt clock has changed. The usdebtclock.org website, that is. Now, it should be no surprise this number here is the most alarming number, and it is climbing continuously. There's one thing you can bet on other than death and taxes, and that is the increase in the U.S. national debt, for sure. But what I'm talking about is the other important number for many of us here in this community. That's right, that number is the dollar to silver ratio. I believe this is one of those things that is somewhat misunderstood by the community here. You saw me very recently post a video about $844 an ounce silver, and I kind of explained that and went through this website, the US Debt Clock, and kind of where they source all their information from. I believe it is accurate, but I'm not sure exactly how they come up with the number. They say here, if you highlight this, it says it is the year-over-year increase in the U.S. M2 money supply divided by the yearly world production of silver in ounces. And so you take that into account, that's how they get that number there. So we kind of went back and looked at the where they got their numbers, and it's the Federal Reserve, and this is kind of where and we would find this information here, the money stock measures, and you can see there's different numbers here, and it's showing basically this is the change that we're seeing, and how the U.S. Debt Clock got their numbers and how they aggregate them together. I think is something that we're going to have to dig a little bit deeper, because basically what this does, it gives it to us by month here, and I guess we would probably have to go back a full year and calculate and add these numbers up to get them. But I think the biggest thing here is not necessarily getting an accurate number there, because it's just a matter of seeing what the change was, because it did jump up an awful lot, in my view, from 844 to 918. And so that is something that we'll kind of explore here and see exactly how often that is updated on the usdebtclock.org's website. Regardless, we can kind of see the change here. If you go back over a year, you can see that M2 money supply, which includes M1, seasonally adjusted or otherwise, there's not a whole lot of difference in these numbers, but the seasonally adjusted tends to have the higher numbers here. But we can see there's been a steady increase, and my guess is probably where they got their numbers before was probably an older, a prior year, maybe 2016 potentially. Not sure. We can kind of make a guess and measure based off of a prediction. We'll take a look at that towards the end of this video. But you can see that as of September, it is up over 15,029 for the number here. Another way to adjust to see how these numbers are aggregated here is a percent change at seasonally adjusted annual rates. In other words, you adjust for the seasons that you see in the printing of the money supply here. It's a statistical measure here. So if we see that for the 12-month period from September 2008 to September 2009, we have a 5.4% increase, 5.7% increase in the M2 money supply. So it is an increase for sure. And even if you look back here from March to September, from June to September, it is a 7% plus. And so we're printing money. We're definitely printing lots of money here. And then we see money stock measures in billions of dollars. We can see these are the numbers up through October the 7th here. And from the M2 numbers, we see the averages for 13-week and so forth. And of course, some of that, I'm not sure if it's including and the repos that we've been discussing and talking about. There's other types of stuff with M1 and the like, but we won't get into that minutia there. But then we have to kind of take a look and see how much silver has been produced, and the statistic is for the world production of silver, and they source it back to the USGS. So this is some data that has been produced by the United States Geological Survey. This is their minerals, and this is something that production that's came out in 2019, but this is just up through 2018. And we can see that mine production has increased, but not by a whole heck of a lot of silver for the world. These are rounded up numbers, but it's 27,000 here tons. That's just for that year there. And but the thing is that's off the world production supply for that year. How much for per ounce of silver above ground? There's a different thing, because I think this is what this is talking about. If you look back here at the U.S. Debt Clock website, you can see that is the yearly world production in silver in ounces. That does not that subtracts all the other silver that's on the earth. In other words, if you have a 2014 American Silver Eagle in your collection, it doesn't count that, or in your stack, or any silver that you've accumulated, or anybody's accumulated before this year, or what they measure as a year from September to September in this case. So, this is a misleading. This is the dollar to silver ratio. Now, it's only misleading in how you interpret it. If you highlight over any of these things, it's going to tell you how exactly it's acquiring its data. So the U.S. Debt Clock, I believe, is an accurate representation, but it's taking a snapshot over the yearly production of silver in the world. So it's sort of misleading there in that aspect for many of us there. But the number is increasing, which means this tells us that it's the dollar supply that is increasing here. We can see here domestic supply. This is a monthly publication by the United States Geological Survey. We can see that domestic production of gold and silver here in the United States, it is increased here from pretty much from the first quarter of 2018. Has been a steady increase in the production of silver domestically here in the United States, and we are nowhere near the top producer. So I think that does tell us that there is some more silver coming out of the ground these days, and being used for a myriad of different uses. I think with the lagging indicator, I believe, is the one that most of us would like to see increase, and that is the amount of silver that we are going to be utilizing for investments. In other words, coins, rounds, bars, hedging, I like to call it. And then we have the U.S. national debt here, going back to this, and this is kind of, I hope this gives you a better understanding about the $918 per ounce, sort of a follow-up to the video I did, because I was quite surprised to see this jump in this number. But when you take into account, I think it confirms what's going on. The Federal Reserve is printing more money, and they're mining just a little bit more silver, but there's more money being created, and that should be the caution, because it's $918 bills per ounce of silver produced each year around the world. So let's fast forward here. The debt clock's got a nice little time machine here, and let's see what it will look like in 2023. Look at where that national debt clock is. This is assuming, let's say, that Trump gets elected, reelected again. $30 trillion debt in just a few short years. That's scary indeed to think about that, for sure. But here's the number we're kind of looking at here, and we can see that the amount of dollar bills per ounce of silver produced per year around the world will be 1,033. So there you go. That's what it will be if we're on the same trajectory as now as we are going, then we will see this occur here. $1,000 would be over $1,000 per ounce for that production there. So very interesting indeed. Let's get back to reality here now. And by the way, these other, going back in time, these don't have any statistics for silver in that regard. So there's not much use going back there. But we know it was 844 before. I posted a video about that earlier. But now we're back down here to $918 per ounce for the silver there. So there you go. Very interesting and fascinating how these numbers are derived and what's going on with the Federal Reserve. I think these repos and the quantitative easing and and that's the thing people don't realize, the government or the Federal Reserve continues to print money, it's just the quantitative tightening that's going on simply means that it's quantitative. It's just tightening up from the easing that had occurred before. In other words, the faucet is just back a little bit. You know, they just turned it down. It's not coming out as fast, the money supply, the printing of the money. And yes, silver mining has increased over the years. There's no question. They are producing more silver, but it takes actual work, fuel, labor, resources to do that. It's not a matter of just you can't digitize silver, although you can to a certain extent through the exchange traded funds and the futures. But the actual physical itself, well, you have to mine it, and there's only so much that you can mine with silver. So that should give us another reason to stack the metal, in my opinion, the physical metal, because we know that there's only a finite amount of it around, obviously. Now, that does not mean that silver is not abundant. It does not mean that it's not something that could fluctuate in price. We know that it is pretty volatile because of the commodity aspect of silver. But I do think that these numbers, I think, speak more to the amount of actual dollars printed, those fiat designated Federal Reserve notes that we have come to either abhor or enjoy. We obviously need them. We obviously use them. We use them to buy our silver. But in the long run, holding silver will protect our wealth, or preserve our wealth in the long run, as long as you hold it there. And that's kind of the lesson. And so I hope this helps make a better sense of these numbers. Again, when I found out about this number rising up to 918, it makes me wonder how often this portion of the website is updated, because the U.S. Geological Survey, again, comes out with these numbers, these reports semi-frequently, and we have to kind of don't know exactly how they are calculated year on year end. Are they doing it calendar year, fiscal year, based off a report off a certain month? It's just, I don't know. It's interesting to see there, because the USGS, as far as silver and commodity, all these different minerals and the like, and how much are exported and imported and produced. There's a lot of data here for sure. But I think that essentially, my guess is they're probably quoting this particular statistic here, 27,000 tons. And it'll be interesting to see what the actual 2019 number is, to see where that lies there. But nonetheless, we'll keep on stacking. We'll keep on accumulating as we can. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.